So last week, get to the slide, talked about Exodus. We talked about who was the God of the Exodus, all right? Who spoke to Moses, who exorcised Egypt, and the different plagues and kind of how it related to the specific gods of Egypt, those false gods, and how Yahweh, Jehovah, made himself known finally at that time by name. Let's get here. We got more and more. With a strong hand. We talked about God's prophecy about what was going to happen. How he said he's going to judge Egypt and her gods. How Egypt will be plundered. How Moses is going to be made God to Pharaoh. We see all those things happen. We see everything the Israelites asked for, people Egypt gave. See the specific plagues attacking different Egyptian deities. We even see when Pharaoh lets them go, he's asking for blessings from Moses. We see all those things happen. The great He is, the great I Am, makes himself known. And not just to Israel, but to Egypt as well. So, we pick up today with the tribe of Israel leaving Egypt. All right. So, God let them out. We're going to start here in, let's do chapter 13 real quick. And we'll see who's leading the Israelites out. 13, 21, and 22, the pillar of cloud and fire. And the Lord went before them day and night in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, that they may travel by day and by night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people. So again, we're trying to see who is the God of the Exodus. Well, it tells us Yahweh is there as Lord, all capital. So as a reminder, if it's all capital when we read in the Old Testament, normally that's the way the translator's telling us if it's Lord or God. It's the Yahweh there, not Elohim or something else. Well, and continuing down, now we get into 14. Egypt's trying to cross the Red Sea. Oh, also, by the way, let's try to remember, this is, I don't remember the name of the movie, but I think, isn't this with Robert Redford as Moses? Is that, there we go, okay. I was trying to remember the movie, the name of it. It's like, is it 10 Commandments? Okay. I was looking through and I'm trying to find pictures and I go, I remember watching the movie, but I couldn't remember the stuff. Anyway. All right. So 14, verse 10. When Pharaoh drew near, the people of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them, and they feared greatly, and the people of Israel cried out to the Lord. Well, Israel fears the worst. Pharaoh's changed his mind, and now he's catching back up. So then in verse 13, and Moses said to the people, fear not, stand firm and see the salvation of Yahweh, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent. So now Moses is telling you, hey, Yahweh is going to do something for you. So we're tying these things together. Well, who does things? And I do think it's funny. I'm going to read 15 to 19 now. The Lord said to Moses, why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward, lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the people of Israel may go through the sea on dry ground. And I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they shall go in after them, and I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his host, his chariots and his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten glory over Pharaoh, his chariots and his horsemen. Then the angel of God, who was going before the hosts of Israel, moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from before them and stood behind them. Again, seeing the angel is there, the angel is in the pillar, the angel is moving. He's related to this symbol, this thing that's leading Egypt day and night. So we have Yahweh who works salvation. And it almost seems like, well, the angel's also the one working salvation and a connection there. All Egypt will learn who God is, not just Israel. So God fights for them. Right? We see the seas parted. Israel gets across on dry land, then Egypt follows them after, and they get stuck. You know, the cinematic, the wheels are stuck in mud, and everybody's sitting there. Well, in 30 and 31, thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hands of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians, so that the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. God crashes the waves back onto him. Egypt is defeated. And again, the point is not just for Israel to know, but for Egypt to know as well. And we keep seeing that repeated. God's not just a God for Israel, but in different places in the Old Testament, he says that all people are my people, but Israel's made the high priest, right? Egypt, the verse in Isaiah where other areas will come to Jesus, basically worship and praying, because all people are God's people. So, making the connection here, tying it back to the very beginning, the God of the Old Testament, the God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, the Trinity there, it's not something we came up with. And we see these different connections where things are happening, where, again, maybe it's not Jesus saying, I am God in the New Testament, but as we read and we understand, well, it's not necessarily written for that specifically. But it is the Lord telling us what he can do and what he has done. Any comments, questions, concerns, or counterpoints or anything specifically about all the way to the crossing of the Red Sea? Well, because I've got another sidebar. Years ago, I remember watching it was kind of like a talk, guy giving a discussion, talking about who the Pharaoh of the Exodus is. What's neat, this is history. You know, it's not just some sort of fables or interesting stories or things that were generated, but it's history. So when the guy was reading and he says, well, at the end of chapter 14, Israel and her gods were judged. You know, we see this thing happening that clearly is a massive event for Egypt. Would that be in the historical record? So a guy, he had a video, and it was basically, the title of the video was, will the real Pharaoh of the Exodus please stand up? And he went through and basically kind of created some data points and measured some different things from maybe where Egypt's conflicts were at, their territory that they supposedly controlled, and different things like that, plotted the data as looking at different pharaohs. And well, through his talk, spoiler, so you don't have to watch the whole hour-long video plus if you don't want to, it came to the point that in the progression of power, Tutmos or Tutmosis, depending on its different spellings wherever you go, the fourth was kind of the height of Egyptian strength, the way he looked at it. Fights all the way up to the northern area of Canaan and other enemies, a lot of area controlled by Egypt. And kind of the way he looked at it and plotted this information, this guy was the top. Greatest strength of Egypt. And after him, for a long period of time, Egypt just diminished. It was all kind of downhill from there. So he goes, well, that seems kind of like in line. All the firstborn are dead. All the wealth of the nation is gone. Your greatest soldiers, the chariots, the horsemen, they're all gone. Kind of falls in line with their military demise. And in that point, So he said, I think this is who it is, right? And in his talk, he pointed to another scholar who went and actually found this guy's mummy and analyzes it, and he makes the remark that he said the mummy had extreme signs of, let's see, what did he call it? Emaciation. He was extremely emaciated. Well, that's kind of weird. I would think all mummies are emaciated. But the guy made the point that he wasn't ill. Tutmosis IV wasn't ill, wasn't stabbed in the back, didn't have all these other sort of signs or stuff like that. Just was really emaciated. And, well, if you're at the height of Egyptian power and a god that you didn't know was defeating all of your gods, your food is gone, your workforce is gone, your military is being defeated, the firstborn is dead, I probably wouldn't be eating well either. So it was very interesting to see some of these connections. And then even having the mummy, potentially, of who the Pharaoh of the Exodus is, I think it's neat to tie it together that it's actually history and not just some story. Also, at the time, Egypt controlled Canaan. So this was something else that was mentioned during the Exodus. Egypt kind of controlled that area. Well, during the Exodus from Egypt, Egypt's power diminishes, and the prophecy earlier to Abraham was, well, you're going to go into this land, but you're going to fight all these other people, and you're going to drive them out. Egypt's never listed. So you think it's interesting how it ties together. The defeat of Egypt clears Egypt out of the land, and now you're going to go forward and you're going to remove the other ones from the land. I think it's kind of odd to be able to potentially look at some Bible characters. So I wanted to include that. And now, if you go, well, it says he died in the sea, right? So how would we have the body of Pharaoh potentially? And I'm not saying this is, but would it even be possible? Well, they died in the sea, right? We'll read closely again in 14:30. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hands of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. So it's within the realm of possibility. But the idea that, to me, it's not just history. I mean, it's not just a fable in the past, but actually history we can relate to. I find that very interesting. And not only just, cool on a, just a thought-based level, but an idea that your faith is history. It's not just something random, like, I just feel real spiritual. But no, your God's been there from the beginning, working for his people. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting little sidebar that potentially might actually be able to look at the mummy of the guy who thought, I don't know your God. Well, I think he does now. All right, so we have, after that, Israel off into the wilderness. So for a few chapters, they're wandering forward. There's some grumbling. In 16, the bread from heaven comes and the glory of the Lord appears in a cloud. Go ahead.
I want to mention, you talked about the change in Canaan and Egypt. Whenever Rahab hides a spy, she says, and we've heard all the stuff that the Lord did to the Pharaoh in Egypt and how they divided the sea and they walked through. And so Canaan, the Canaanites, those living in Canaan had heard about all this stuff, probably because she said the Egyptians withdrew from Canaan and they knew that something powerful had happened there. And that was 40 years later.
Right. Like, well, the news is going to spread. Yeah, so for online, David had mentioned Rahab talking about being aware of the actions of Yahweh and all he did to Egypt. Thinking, yeah, that would, especially if they're a superpower in that area, and then finding out, wait, who defeated them? Oh, it wasn't another earthly army. That's very cool. Yeah, so going forward, like I said, they're kind of out into the wilderness, and they're grumbling, and they have some different things that occur. Chapter 17, I had kind of talked last year a little bit about, where Moses, he's up on the hill and they're fighting Amalek. And as long as he's up on the hill and he's got his arms outstretched, they're winning, right? And then he has two other guys coming to help him. Thought, well, that's interesting. That seems like it relates to the New Testament. And then in 19, coming forward, we have another interesting little passage. So we'll read that one. Again, thinking if we kind of wear our lenses, we see interesting verses. So they come to Mount Sinai. God says, don't touch, right? Don't touch the mountain. Don't even let animals touch the mountain. And Moses goes up. And in 19:21 to 25, the Lord said to Moses, go down and warn the people, lest they break through to the Lord to look, and many of them perish. Also let the priests who come near to the Lord consecrate themselves, lest the Lord break out against them. And Moses said to the Lord, the people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for you yourself warned us, saying, set limits around the mountain and consecrate it. And the Lord said to him, go down and come up, bringing Aaron with you. But do not let the priests and the people break through to come up to the Lord, that is to Yahweh, lest he break out against them. So Moses went down to the people and told them. Again, there's some discussion, and even when we have people trying to come to conclusions and set up things, we always come from our either frame of reference or our preconceived notions or whatever. So it kind of depends where you look, but it's the Lord, Yahweh, talking, and he's talking about himself in third person. So is it God talking about another person of God, the Trinity? And again, I just thought it was interesting seeing, well, the Lord's saying, don't come up and look up to the mountain, because the Lord will break out against you. He will break out against you. So, again, interesting as we go along, and it depends. You'll read, and some say, well, it's just a way of speaking to show God's authority of different things, speaking in third person. True, but also those people would also say, when we read in the New Testament, when Jesus says, your sins are forgiven, they go, this man's blaspheming. Only God does that. He goes, okay, well, what about get up and walk? How's that one? So they would say, well, that's not God. So I find that a challenge. Lest God break out against you. Then we have 20 to 24. God is giving some laws to Moses, right? He's up on the mountain talking to him, and he's telling him what to do. Let's see, about altars, about slaves, restitution, different things about justice, 20 to 24. But I like a part in 23 that's also somewhat related to our class. So chapter 23 and in verse 20. This is the conquest of Canaan promised. It's the little subheading that's given for me in mine. Starting in verse 20, behold, I send an angel before you to guard you on the way and to bring you to the place I have prepared. Pay careful attention to him and obey his voice. Do not rebel against him, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. But if you carefully obey his voice and do all that I say, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversaries. Well, like we just talked about in the New Testament, and it's in Mark 2, he's the paralytic man. Wait, how can you forgive his sin? Well, the Lord Jesus can forgive his sin because he is God. And he makes that point. So interesting here, the angel is the one who chooses not to forgive the transgressions of the people because they don't obey his voice. To me, it seems odd. The angel has the authority to say, yeah, your sins are forgiven, or no, I told you what to do and you didn't listen. Additionally, in 21, the Lord is speaking and he says, my name is in him. So name, kind of like stop in the name of the law, the authority, the position, the nature related to God. He's saying, well, that angel has that name. That name's in him as well. And what's interesting as well, kind of along that same vein of the angel, the angel is the one that's saying, I don't forgive you, or I do forgive you, based off of the transgressions. Zechariah makes a similar, it's revealed to Zechariah, so maybe Zechariah just records an interesting interaction. So in Zechariah chapter 3, he has a vision. Turn there. Zechariah chapter 3. Then he showed me Joshua, the high priest, standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to accuse him. And the Lord said to Satan, the Lord rebuke you, O Satan. The Lord who has chosen Jerusalem rebuke you. Is not this a brand plucked from the fire? Now Joshua was standing before the angel, clothed with filthy garments, and the angel said to those who were standing before him, remove the filthy garments from him. And he said, behold, I have taken your iniquity away from you, and I will clothe you with pure vestment. And I said, let him put a clean turban on his head. So they put a clean turban on his head and clothed him with garments, and the angel of the Lord was standing by. So who's there in the vision? Well, it's the angel. It's Joshua and Satan there to accuse him. And Satan pointing out, right, oh, he's filthy. He got filthy clothes, filthy rags. We see something repeated in the New Testament, a similar statement. And the angel says, remove the filthy garments. Behold, I've taken your iniquity away from you. Another connection with this angel being related to the removal of iniquities, which seems like that's something that only God does. Any questions or concerns before we move on to the next one? Go ahead.
So are you thinking this is an angel or part of the Trinity?
So the context for me seems to kind of lead us where we're going. Whenever I'm reading the angel and it seems that it's doing something God does and it's a behavior that's specific for God, to me that's telling me that that's the, Christophany, the theophany, a God there, that is the Son, the messenger, because angel, like we talked about, angel doesn't necessarily mean some special spirit being with wings, it just means messenger. And who is the messenger of God, who's the messenger of the Father, I feel, is in my study, the messenger is the Son of God, who comes to the world incarnate. So this is a pre-incarnate appearance of the Son.
There's a couple other instances where we see angels. David took a census, and an angel was sent, and 70,000 were killed during that pestilence. He had choices to make. It could be 3 years at the hand of the enemies, 3 months, or 3 days at the hand of the Lord. And then Abram met 3 messengers. I think one of them was Jesus and the other 2 angels, but those angels went and took out Sodom and Gomorrah. Those are my opinions.
I agree. David, that's one potentially down the line I was potentially looking at in the kind of the series of classes is maybe, no, and that's perfectly fine. I appreciate people going, hey, what about this and that and this and that one? That's great. And like you mentioned, well, seeing that that's Christ in a form that Abram sees with 2 other angels, that makes sense to me, because when we read through and we see the next chapter, the 2 angels arrive there and they're talking and doing stuff. And it seems that the way he's talking to that person, well, he's giving him a lot of honor. And also, they eat with them too. So it seems like there's so many themes that are interesting and all interconnected as we go through. But no, I appreciate it, and I agree. David, I'd have to go back and look, but I do remember, the punishments where he's like, hey, you get to pick. And then after he picked, he goes, can we please stop? And then at the end, what's that, 2 Samuel? Or is it 1 Samuel? Okay, because he's at the end. It's basically when he goes to asked to buy the guy's parcel of land. So yeah, I'd have to go back and look to see. You know what? While we're here,
Samuel 24.
right. See if I made any notes in here specifically about it. Yeah, so 2 Samuel 24, 15. The Lord sent a pestilence on Israel from the morning until the anointed time, and there died of the people from Dan to Beersheba 70,000 men, and whom the angel stretched out his hand towards Jerusalem to destroy it. The Lord relented from the calamity and said to the angel who was working destruction among people, "It is enough, now stay your hand." And the angel of the Lord was by the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. Then David spoke to the Lord when he saw the angel who was smiting the people and said, "Behold, I have sinned and I have done wickedly. But these sheep, what have they done? Please let your hand be against me and my father's house." So there, angels can do things, right? This one's trying to read, is it the same angel that he's seeing? If it's the same angel that's doing the thing, well, now he's seeing him standing here. And well, so he's by the threshing floor, and David spoke to the Lord when he saw the angel. So is it I see the angel, speak to the Lord, or is it I saw the angel and speak to the Lord? It's an interesting to try and break down and look and see, is that the angel of the Lord, the messenger of the Lord, who's doing it, now he's talking to him, or is it a different one? I don't know. But it is an interesting question. So I appreciate the comment. Any others? All right. So we kind of continue in the wilderness. So in chapter 24 to 30, God gives some instructions for construction in Exodus for different things. Sanctuary, the ark, some other things, the tabernacle. And what's interesting, another little interesting part is in chapter 31, when God says for Aholab and Bezaleel, these men, the Spirit of God has filled them. It's the same words used in Genesis 1:2, the Ruah Elohim. So that same Spirit that's related to being over the waters in creation is on these people now. And we'll see kind of as we go forward. Moses had that Spirit, and then that Spirit is put on other people, so the Spirit isn't necessarily constrained by time, by place and space as well. Then we have the golden calf incident, right? And they all smash it up and drink it. And then in Exodus 33, let's do 7 to 11. So Exodus 33, 7 to 11. Now Moses used to take the tent and pitch it outside the camp, far off from the camp, and he called it the tent of meeting. And everyone who sought the Lord, again in bold as Yahweh, would go out to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. Whenever Moses went out to the tent, all the people would rise up, and each would stand at his tent door and watch Moses until he had gone into the tent. When Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and the Lord would speak with Moses. And when all the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance of the tent, all the people would rise up and worship, each at his own tent door. Thus the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face, as a man speaks to his friend. When Moses turned again to the camp, his assistant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, would not depart from the tent. The tent of meeting before the tabernacle, Moses set something up. He goes out there to meet God, and it seems God meets him face to face. So, go ahead.
So what does that mean? Because we see later in that chapter at the end, it says, "I will move my hand and you will see my back, but my face must not be seen." So how is he having a face-to-face conversation if he is physically unable to see it?
So, and I think we're in, John 4, God is spirit. He's worshiped in spirit and truth everywhere. we don't see that unless it's revealed to us. So from what it looks like, the different times where, like when this person appears to Abraham, or as we'll go into Joshua and some of the other judges, we don't see the spirit realm unless it's revealed. We don't see God. He's not a human in the sense that he's not time, space, or place constrained. So I think that he's created a right, yeah, something to where you can understand, but it doesn't seem like it's changing each time. Like some shape. He recognized him. Moses recognized him face to face. This is Moses' words. So it's interesting. What is it? I don't know. It would definitely probably be overwhelming to kind of be able to understand, but to make the determination, I'm not sure. But to see that there are so many places where it seems that whoever this is, has authority. And that'll be one of the points of the next class with Joshua meeting the angel. You have the commander of God's earthly army, Israel, meeting the commander of God's heavenly army. He goes, "Oh, you need to remove your sandals because where you're at is holy." So he falls down. This. What is the? I'm not sure. It's beyond me. It's a struggle I'm still working through, and definitely kind of a babe in the faith. But the Lord He's beyond my understanding. But I'm not sure if that kind of helps. But it seems to me that He's appeared at sundry times and sundry places to interact with His creation. I guess He can kind of pick however He wants to do that.
I think it gets back to the fact that later Moses says, now show me your glory, and God's saying, you can't handle that.
Right.
That's not possible.
Right.
Let you see the back.
Right. Well, and some of the times too, it's why do you ask my name? You wouldn't even understand it. It's God's nature is beyond us, something that we can't fully understand or comprehend. And I don't remember where it's at, if it's maybe Isaiah or maybe it's in Proverbs, Psalms. Even the heavenly beings don't compare. The heavenly beings who are there, who see it in whatever the spirit, however that spirit realm is, they don't even understand. So kind of points to the authority of God. All right. Thanks for the comment. Any others? Yes, sir.
Comment about the term face to face. You can look at that in two ways. First way, a lot of people say, well, how can he see the face here and that contradicts with him seeing the back over here? But the idea of face to face also conveys the idea of intimacy and of proximity. And you see Moses like no other that is that close to God that he can use the term face to face to describe his interaction.
Right, and so David's point was face to face can mean in the same way, like I see what you mean, in a kind of an understanding, not literally I'm seeing your words floating through the air. It's a relationship, being as close to God as humanly possible, and having that relationship, and that's how that's expressed literally. So, very good. Any others? All right. But as a relation to that, let's see. Thinking of the angel being in the pillar in the cloud, it seems like, well, it's the cloud descending. So is it the same angel, pillar, cloud descending on the tent of meeting? That was something interesting to pay attention to. Yes, sir.
I looked up, it's in the New Testament, in 1 Corinthians, they talk about we shall see face to face. We're talking about Jesus and God.
Right. I'd have to look at the context. I'm not familiar with the verse, but Nathan was mentioning in the New Testament, it sounds like it's seeing face to face. I guess that would probably. I would have to look and see if it's referring to. The writer there is referring to looking at Jesus and seeing Him and knowing that we've met the Lord face to face. So let's see, at the end of Exodus, the tabernacle is made, and we're told that the glory of the Lord, the pillar of cloud, is ever before the people. And 40:38, for the cloud of the Lord was on the tabernacle by day, and fire was in it by night, in the sight of all Israel throughout all their journeys. So we have God there leading his people. And then Leviticus starts, verse 1:1 says, the Lord spoke to Moses. So the interesting connection for me, again, is, well, if the angel's in the cloud and he's the one moving, and he's on the pillar, in the pillar of fire or smoke, and then it's on the tent of meeting, and then it's here on the tabernacle, and then Moses is giving the laws, and saying, well, Yahweh's talking to him. Interesting possibility in the way that I see is, well, now Jesus is telling you, I'm giving you the laws. I'm giving you what you should do and what you should not do. And the relation is kind of made in the New Testament when the woman is accused of adultery and they bring her forward and they're talking about all things that need to happen. And, well, Jesus says, if you're sinless, basically, you cast the first stone. And he reaches down, he starts writing on the ground. And then the people eventually go away. Well, the connection is made with the Old Testament. Well, God writes with his finger the law. So do we know what he wrote? No. But clearly the people who were there and felt like they had a grievance and an opportunity kind of changed their mind. It always seems like God's the best chess player. All right, so this way we're not stuck with the Exodus and wilderness for another week. We'll kind of go through the rest of this real quick. Not much other in Leviticus. There's one other time the glory of the Lord is noted doing some stuff. But I'm going to save that one for next week because that'll tie in. Then we into Numbers. Let's see. I do find it interesting in Numbers that whenever they lay out the tribes, it does, if you were to look at it, kind of look like a cross from the tabernacle with all the people laid out. There's some statements in chapter 14 and 16. The Lord and his glory are in the cloud. That's also in Deuteronomy. And then in Deuteronomy 20:16, God tells us that he heard the groanings of Israel and he sent the angel to bring him out. So again, this connection with God's doing these things and the angels doing these things. The messenger of God is doing these things. So to tie it all together, last week and this week, why does it matter? Is it just a kind of an interesting thought experiment? Or can that, oh, sorry, that's small. Should have made that a lot bigger. Or does that relate to kind of how we go on our walk, how we interact with people, say in the disciple-making groups for us or our own faith or others? But God gives us the account early on that he frees his people. And it's from sin, it's from these false gods, things that are controlling their lives. Right? Instead of the Egyptians seeing everything being divine but himself, God says, no, I'll free you from that. So when we interact with people, are we trying to help them to understand that they can be freed from those things? We see the example a few times. God saves the people who fear him, even the Egyptians. If you'll listen to my words, your people and your possessions were spared from these plagues. It depends. It's someone who fears him and obeys his word. Desires to remove us from all evil. The idea that, sure, there's things there that are wrong, and I want to remove you from that. When we interact with people, are we trying to help them to understand that God is desiring for their redemption? All the things that are wrong, they can be removed from. And are we understanding that? Those challenges that we have that maybe shackle us to, or make us afraid to want to go talk to somebody because we go, I talk to them, they're just going to see I'm a hypocrite because they see the way I behave. Well, yeah, we're not perfect. Jesus is perfect. That's the point. Teach him. Teach him to look to the right example and not necessarily only to us. But in Exodus 23, 32 and 33, this is back again with the conquest of Canaan. 32 and 33, excuse me. You shall make no covenant with them and their gods. They shall not dwell in your land, lest they make you sin against me. For if you serve their gods, it will surely be a snare to you. As another reminder, when we go out and we interact with people as we're trying to relate and bring people to the Lord, are we making covenants with their gods? How are we relating, especially in the modern culture? The challenge is to obey God and to point people to Him. That's it to try and wrap it up. We're right on